left the store this morning in Corvallis vowing to disconnect myself from all this stuff because I'm sick of it. You know,
it can be a little bit disheartening if you...
Do you ever read Andy Borowitz? Is that David Borowitz, New Yorker? He's tongue-in-cheek writer.
I believe it. In the New Yorker? Yeah.
In the New Yorker.
Yeah.
He's excellent because he wrote a little thing about how Facebook had everybody, online, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's whoever the guy in Facebook is. The kid, anyway.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Now he says, you think you're on Facebook now? Now we've really got it. And it's just so tongue-in-cheek. And I've sent it to a few friends, and they thought it was really serious.
And they thought it was serious?
Well, because...
Of course.
Because we are so connected. I mean,
we are, without any question.
Not with this crowd, but you get with the younger crowd, and they're standing here talking to each other, and they're texting.
At the same... And to each other. Yeah.
Matt, they don't talk anymore.
No.
And then I get emails now with abbreviations. I don't know what they mean because they do it on Facebook.
I know. They pick it up over there. What is that?
I don't know what it is. I know.
You can't win.
Maybe if I get your email, I'll send that to you because it's really good tongue-in-cheek. I mean, look at what you did. I mean, if this isn't a...
Oh, I had the jury, but I had nothing.
No, it's called... what's the guy from the 30s and 40s that did Rube Goldberg, remember?
Yes, I do.
And it all worked.
And so we knew little marble has to come down here.
I know.
And the squirrel goes and jumps up and does that. And
well, you know what?
The water.
That's what you've done here.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, there's no squirrels, no marble.
Is this your antenna grounded? Is that a grounded? That's a ground, right?
No, it's not an antenna. It's not a ground. It's a stabilizing wire just to keep it from wiggling too much. I'll get the squirrel in a minute. Hi, Nicole.
So we're going to kind of hover there and hopefully leave it early.
We can sit right there.
If we went there, what should we do?
We'll let you know. Yeah. I deliver. I'm better.
That's right, you are.
I know. Absolutely, I always was.
Okay, I just didn't want you to think we were being rude.
I understand. That's perfect. I've done that myself, so that's fine.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah,
been
it was a
done
last
before.
minute thing. I'm like, what?
I know. Okay, cool. I'm gone.
What are you doing?
I gotta get a strawberry. No pepper, you can't have it. No.
This when he came from Russia, he knows here in England. This is just great. June 1. It's at 7 in the evening, which will be okay because it's not going to be light till 9:30 or so. And we've been about 4 times. I don't like to miss these exits.
Can I? We're going to get the sunshine again.
Saturday, June 1.
I don't know what it is, but you like my new dress.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is the first event for OCCMS because we're having not only a silent auction, but we're also having a melodrama with 2 of the finest people. Is actually what it is. It's a melody with a drama. And this is a classical type of entertainment that we have just been educated about, thanks to Edmund and Cary. And before we introduce them, I would like to explain our auction procedure in case some of you didn't hear me. Some of you very generously have already bid on items that we have, and we're very amazed by the generosity of the people in this location, the beautiful things that they have given us for this event. And we have given you some opportunity to bid and to taste the wonderful hors d'oeuvres prepared by Cindy Scheel of Exuberance Catering. I think she deserves a big gift. everything that she was prepared. So after this concert, which is about 52 minutes long, I invite you to have more hors d'oeuvres, more wine, and do a little more bidding, and then we will invite everybody up here so we can announce the winners, and you can pay Chris, my wonderful treasurer, and take home the lovely items that you have won. So, without any further delay, I would now like to introduce Cary Lewis. Who, yes.
Okay, when are you going to close the bidding after?
About approximately a half an hour after the concert ends. Okay, and then Cary Lewis is going to explain more about the melodrum. I guess I'm going to see.
Can somebody help me with this?
Oh, yes, first I forgot to explain. We have been instructed that we need Kleenex. So everybody needs this is a tearjerker.
Crying towels. I love it, crying
And
towels.
so they instructed me to buy Kleenex, and I was hoping somebody would ask me, what is this? And I need one too. Because I cry easily.
I'm like, just snap it a few. Pepper, we need you too. Oh,
She cocked her
she
head.
won't. She's got that sun a little bit on her. Pepper, good girl. You want a treat?
Girl.
Did you get Kleenex? You want a treat, Pepper?
Let me just say,
I mean, she's catching the sunlight on her strangely.
okay. So what we're going to have, I think it's very appropriate. I don't know how many of you listen to the all-classical station here that comes from Edmund is well known for the people who do listen to that because he's got this show every weekend about music from the movies. And it's very appropriate for him to be doing this one because this is, in effect, music from the movies, except they didn't have movies when this was done. They just had stories, and then a lot of composers, it was big in those days, composers to write music to be played while somebody was telling a story. And so that's what this is. Richard Strauss, I guess he was in his 30s when he wrote this music to the poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson. And actually, he sort of made his reputation as a good composer from this particular piece. He had written his tone poems, but it was easier to put on this sort of thing, touring around and doing this, than it was to get together an orchestra and play the tone poems. So he got a lot of mileage out of this. I think, anybody here see the movie Jaws? Okay, you're aware in Jaws, for instance, that there's this musical motif. You don't have to see anything. All you have to do is hear that musical motif, and all of a sudden something. Well, this is the same sort of thing. As you listen to it, when we first start off, you'll begin to recognize that certain music comes back as it relates to the characters that are in the show, in the story. And listen carefully at the very beginning when Edmund introduces the characters, because each character, as he introduces the character, the music that will be behind it will be the music that pertains to that character. Then every time you hear that music come in, even if that character isn't in the picture, he's in your mind. Okay? So I just wanted to tell you that. I'm sorry I have my professorial hat on, but I think it kind of it's helpful to think that way as you're listening, so you're not just listening to, oh, isn't that pretty music? But there's more depth to it than you're talking about. So we're going to start off, and Edmund will show up sometime. And I'm going to start off with music that is really meant to sort of give a picture of the little village on the seacoast, much like here, with the waves coming in and going out, and Edmund will arrive hopefully in time.
lines of cliff breaking have left a chasm, and in the chasm are foam and yellow sands. Beyond, red roofs about a narrow wharf in cluster, then a mouldered church, and higher, a long street climbs to one tall towered mill. And high behind it, a grey down with Danish barrows, and a hazelwood flourishes green in a cup-like hollow of the down. Here on this beach 200 years ago, 3 children of 3 houses. Annie Lee, the prettiest little damsel in the port. And Philip Ray, the miller's only son. And Enoch Arden, a rough sailor's lad, made orphan by a winter shipwreck, played among the waste and lumber of the shore, and built their castles of dissolving sand to watch them overflowed, or following up and flying the white breaker, daily left the little footprint, daily washed away. A narrow cave ran in beneath the cliff. In this the children played at keeping house. Enoch was host one day, and Philip the next, while Annie still was mistress. But at times Enoch would hold possession for a week. "This is my house, and this is my little wife." "Mine too," said Philip. "Turn and turn about." When if they quarrelled, Enoch, stronger made, was master. Then would Philip, his blue eyes all flooded with the helpless wrath of tears, shriek out, "I hate you, Enoch!" And at this, the little wife would weep for company, and pray them not to quarrel for her sake, and say she would be little wife to both. When the dawn of rosy childhood passed, and the new warmth of life's ascending sun was felt by either fixed his heart on that one girl. And Enoch spoke his love, but Philip loved in silence, and the girl seemed kinder unto Philip than to him. But she loved Enoch, though she knew it not, and would, if asked, deny it. Enoch set a purpose evermore before his eyes to hoard all savings to the uttermost, to purchase his own boat and make a home for Annie, and so prospered that at last a luckier or a bolder fisherman, a carefuller in peril, did not breathe for leagues along that breaker-beaten coast than Enoch. And ere he touched his 21st May, he purchased his own boat and made a home, neat and nest-like, halfway up the narrow street that clambered toward the mill. Then, on a golden autumn eventide, the younger people, making holiday with bag and sack and basket, great and small, went nutting to the hazels. Philip stayed, father lying sick and needing him. An hour behind. But as he climbed the hill, just where the prone edge of the wood began to feather toward the hollow, he saw the pair, Enoch and Annie, sitting hand in hand. Enoch's large grey eyes and weather-beaten face, all kindled by a still and sacred fire that burned as on an altar. Philip looked, and in their eyes and faces read his doom. Then, as their faces drew together, groaned and slipped aside, and like a wounded life crept down into the hollows of the wood. And there, while the rest, loud in merrymaking, had his dark hour unseen. And rose and passed, bearing a lifelong hunger in his heart. So these were wed, and merrily rang the bells, and merrily ran the years. 7 happy years. 7 happy years of health and competence, of mutual love and honourable toil, with children. First a daughter. In Enoch woke with his first babe's first cry, the noble wish to save all earnings to the uttermost, and give his child a better bringing up than his had been, or hers. A wish renewed when 2 years after came a boy to be the rosy idol of her solitudes. Then, while Enoch was abroad on wrathful seas, there came a change, as all things human change. 10 miles to northward of the narrow port opened a larger haven. Thither used Enoch at times to go by land or sea. And once when there, and clambering on a mast in harbour, by mischance he slipped and fell. A limb was broken when they lifted him, and while he lay recovering, his wife bore him another son, a sickly one. And on Enoch fell, lying thus inactive, doubt and gloom. He seemed, as in a nightmare of the night, to see his children leading ever more low, miserable lives of hand to mouth, and her he loved a beggar. Then he prayed, save them from this, whatever this might come to me. And while he prayed, the master of that ship Enoch had served him, hearing his mischance, came. For he knew the man and valued him, reporting of his vessel, China bound, and wanting yet a boatswain. Would he go? They yet were many weeks before she sailed from this port. Would Enoch have the place? And Enoch all at once assented to it, rejoicing at that answer to his prayer. Then, first since Enoch's golden ring had girt her finger, Annie fought against his will, yet not with brawling opposition she, but manifold entreaties, many a tear, many a sad kiss by day, by night renewed, sure that all evil would come of it. Besought him, supplicating, if he cared for her, or his dear children not to go. He, not for his own self caring, but her and her children, let her plead in vain, so grieving held his will, and bore it through. And Enoch faced the morning of farewell brightly and boldly, as a brave, God-fearing man bowed himself down. And in that mystery, where God in man is one with man in God, prayed for a blessing on his wife and babes, whatever came to him. And then he said, Annie, this voyage, by the grace of God, will bring fair weather. Yet to all of us, come, Annie, come, cheer up before I go. At length, she spoke. Oh, Enoch, you are wise, and yet for all your wisdom, well I know that I shall look upon your face no more. Well then, said Enoch, I shall look on yours. Annie, the ship I sail in passes here. He named the day. Get you a seaman's glass and spy out my face and laugh at all your fears. Annie, my girl, cheer up, be comforted. Look to the babes until I come again. Keep everything ship-shape, for I must go. And fear no more for me, or if you fear, cast all your cares on God, that our anchor holds. Is he not yonder in those uttermost parts of the morning? If I flee to these, can I go from him? And the sea is his, the sea is his, he made it. And Enoch rose, cast his strong arms about his drooping wife, and kissed his wonder-stricken little ones. But the third, the sickly one, who slept after a night of fearful wakefulness, when Annie would have raised him, Enoch said, Wake him not, let him sleep. How should the child remember this? And kissed him in the coat. But Annie, from her baby's forehead, clipped a tiny curl and gave it to him. And this he kept through all his future. But now hastily caught his bundle, waved his hand, and went his way. But all in vain. Perhaps she could not fix the glass to suit her eye. Perhaps her eye was dim and tremulous. She saw him not. And while he stood on deck waving, the moment and the vessel passed. Even to the last dip of the vanishing sail, she watched it and departed, weeping for him. Then, though she mourned his absence as his grave, set her sad will no less to chime with his, gained for her own a scanty sustenance, and lived a life of silent melancholy. Now the third child was sickly born, and grew yet sicklier, though the mother cared for it with all a mother's care. Nevertheless, after a lingering, ere she was aware, like the caged bird escaping suddenly, the little innocent soul flitted away. In that same week when Annie buried her babe, Philip's true heart, which hungered for her peace, since Enoch left he had not looked upon her, smote him as having kept aloof so long. Surely, said Philip, surely I may see her now. May it be some little comfort. Therefore went, passed through the solitary room in front, paused for a moment at an inner door, then struck it thrice, and no one opening entered. But Annie, seated with her grief, fresh from the burial of her little one, cared not to look on any human face, but turned her own toward the wall and wept. Then Philip, standing, said falteringly, Annie, I came to ask a favour of you. I came to speak to you of what he wished. Enoch, your husband. I do beseech you by the love you bear him and his children, not to say me nay. For if you will, when Enoch comes again, why then he shall repay me. If you will, Annie, for I am rich and well-to-do. Now, let me put the boy and girl to school. This is the favour that I came to ask. Then Annie, with her brows against the wall, answered, I cannot look you in the face. I feel so foolish and so broken down. When you came in, my sorrow broke me down, and now I think your kindness breaks me down. But Enoch lives. That is borne in on me. He will repay you. Money can be repaid, not kindness such as yours. Then Philip put the boy and girl to school, and brought them needful books, and everywhere, like one who does his duty by his own, made himself theirs. From distant corners of the street they ran to greet his hearty welcome heartily. Lords of his house and of his mill were they. Worried his passive ear with petty wrongs or pleasures, hung upon them, played with him, and called him Father Philip. Philip gained as Enoch lost. For Enoch seemed to them uncertain as a vision or a dream, faint as a figure seen in early dawn down at the far end of an avenue going we know not where. And so, 10 years since Enoch left his hearth and native land fled forward, and no news of Enoch came. It chanced one evening, Annie's children longed to go with others, nutting to the wood, and Annie would go with them. And they begged for Father Philip too. But after scaling half the weary down, just where the prone edge of the wood began to feather toward the hollow, all her strength failed her, and sighing, "Let me rest," she said. But Philip, sitting at her side, forgot her presence and remembered one dark hour here in this wood when, like a wounded life, he crept into the shadow. At last he said, lifting his honest forehead, "Listen, Annie, how merry they are down yonder in the wood. Tired, Annie?" For she did not speak a word. Tired? But her face had fallen upon her hands. Then Philip, coming somewhat closer, spoke, Annie, there is a thing upon my mind, and it has been upon my mind so long that though I know not when it first came there, I know that it will out at last. Oh, Annie, it is beyond all hope, against all chance, that he who left you 10 years ago should still be living. Well then, let me speak. I grieve to see you poor and wanting help. I cannot help you as I wish to do, unless... Well, they say that women are so quick. Perhaps you know what I would have you know. I wish you for my wife. I fain would prove a father to your children. I do think they love me as a father. I'm sure that I love them as if they were mine own. And I believe, if you were fast my wife, that after all these sad, uncertain years, we might still be as happy as God grants to any of his creatures. Think upon it, for I am well to do, no kin, no care, no burden, save my care for you and yours. We have known each other all our lives, and I have loved you longer than you know. Then answered Annie, and tenderly she spoke. You have been as God's good angel in our house. God bless you for it. God reward you for it. Philip, with something happier than myself. Can one love twice? Can you be ever loved as Enoch was? What is it that you ask? I am content, he answered, to be loved a little after Enoch. Oh, she cried, scared as it were. Dear Philip, wait a while. If Enoch comes, but Enoch will not come. Yet wait a year. A year is not so long. Surely I shall be wiser in a year. Oh, wait a little. Philip sadly said, Annie, as I have waited all my life, I may wait a little longer. Nay, she cried, I am bound. You have my promise. In a year. Will you not bide your year as I bide mine? And Philip answered, I will bide my year. Here both were mute, till Philip, glancing up, beheld the dead flame of the fallen day pass from the Danish barrow overhead. Then, fearing night and chill for Annie, rose and sent his voice beneath him through the wood. Up came the children laden with their spoil. Then all descended to the port, and there, at Annie's door, he paused and gave his hand, saying gently, Annie, when I spoke to you, that was your hour of weakness. I was wrong. I'm always bound to you, but you're free. Then Annie, weeping, answered, I am bound. She spoke, and in one moment, as it were, that autumn into autumn flashed again, and there he stood once more before her face, claiming her promise. Is it a year? She asked. Yes, if the nuts, he said, be ripe again, come out and see. But she put him off. So much to look to, such a change. A month. Give her a month. She knew that she was bound. A month, no more. Then Philip, with his eyes full of that lifelong hunger, and his voice shaking a little like a drunkard's hand, said, take your own time, Annie, take your own time. And Annie could have wept for pity of him, and yet she held him on delayingly, trying his truth and his long sufferance till another half year had slipped away. At last, one night, it chanced that Annie could not sleep, but earnestly prayed for a sign. My Enoch, is he gone? She started from bed and struck herself a light, then desperately seized the holy book, suddenly set it wide to find a sign, and suddenly put her finger on the text. Under a palm tree? That was nothing to her. No meaning there. She closed the book and slept. When, lo, her Enoch, sitting on a height, under a palm tree. Over him, the sun. He is gone, she thought. He is happy. He is singing, Hosanna in the highest. Yonder shines the sun of righteousness, and these be palms whereof the happy people strowing cried, Hosanna in the highest. Here she woke, resolved, sent for Philip, and said wildly to him, There is no reason why we should not wed. And for God's sake, he answered, both our sakes, so you will wed me? Let it be at once. Nor ventured out alone. What ailed her then, that ere she entered, often her hand dwelt lingly on the latch, fearing to enter? Philip thought he knew. Such doubts and fears were common to her state, being with child. But when her child was born, then her new child was as herself renewed. Then the new mother came about her heart. Then her good Philip was her all in all, and that mysterious instinct wholly died. Prosperously sailed the ship Good Fortune, though at setting forth the Biscay, roughly ridging eastward, shook and almost overwhelmed her. Yet unvexed, she slipped across the summer of the world, till silent in her oriental haven. Less lucky her home voyage. At first, indeed, though many a fair sea circle day by day scarce rocking, her full-busted figurehead stared o'er the ripple feathering from her bows. Then followed calms, and then winds, variable, then baffling, a long course of them, at last storm, such as drove her under moonless heavens, till hard upon the cry of breakers came the crash of ruin and the loss of all but Enoch and 2 others. Half the night, buoyed upon floating tackle and broken spars, these drifted, stranding and standing on an isle at morn, rich but the loneliest in a lonely sea. No want was there of human sustenance, soft fruitage, mighty nuts and nourishing roots, nor, save for pity, was it hard to take the helpless life so wild that it was tamed. There, in a seaward gazing mountain gorge, they built and thatched with leaves of palm a hut, half native cabin. So the 3, set in this Eden of all plenteousness, dwelt with eternal summer, ill content. For one, the youngest, Hardy-Mullen boy, hurt in that night of sudden ruin and wreck, lay lingering out a 5 years' death in life. They could not leave him out. After he was gone, the 2 remaining found a fallen stem, and Enoch's comrade, careless of himself, fire-hollowing this in Indian fashion, fell sun-stricken, and that other lived alone. In these 2 deaths, he read God's warning. Wait. The morning wooded to the peak, the slender cocoa's drooping crown of plumes, the lightning flash of insect and of bird, the lustre of the long convolvuluses, the glows and glories of the broad belt of the world, all these he saw. But what he fain had seen, he could not see, the kindly human face, nor ever hear a kindly voice, but heard the myriad shriek of wheeling ocean fowl. The league-long roller, thundering on the roof, as down the shore he ranged, or all day long sat often in the seaward gazing gorge, a shipwrecked sailor waiting for a sail. No sail from day to day. But every day the sunrise broken into scarlet shafts among the palms and ferns and precipices, the blaze upon the waters to the east, the blaze upon his island overhead, the blaze upon the waters to the west, then the great stars that globe themselves in heavens, the hollower bellowing ocean, and again the scarlet shafts of sunrise, but no sail. There, often as he watched, or seemed to watch, so still the golden lizard on him paused. A phantom, made of many phantoms, moved before him, haunting him, or he himself moved haunting people, things and places, known far in a darker isle beyond the line. The babes, their babble, Annie, the small house, the climbing street, the mill, the leafy lanes, the peacock yew tree, the horse he drove, the boat he sold, the chill November dawns and dewy glooming downs, the gentle shower, the smell of dying leaves, and the low moan of leaden-coloured seas. Once, likewise, in the